Okay, and we are live for episode 2 of cosplay photo critique. Man, nailing it right from the start. um, so thanks everyone who's joining this, either watching it live or watching it back afterwards. So, and thanks again, Sarah, for joining me on this.
Sure.
Um, so kind of based out off of some feedback that we had on the last episode is lots of people saying things to the extent of like, "Oh, my work isn't good enough to submit to the critique," or stuff to that extent. Um, and it's just like both Sarah and I talked about this, and we're like, yeah, that's kind of like that's not the point at all. The goal that we have for this series is to help you improve. Um, your work could be amazing. It could be awful. It could be good, and you just think it's awful, or you just in general you want to improve. It doesn't matter. Like, uh, don't be afraid to submit to this. Like, and it's our goal isn't to tell you whether your photos are good or they're bad. Like that's irrelevant. Um, our goal here is to try and look at your work, highlight what we think you did well, what you think you could improve on, and maybe ways you could improve on that. So please, if you're watching this and you thought before like I don't feel comfortable submitting, like please don't be afraid of doing that because it's not. It really shouldn't be scary. Um,
Yeah, I wanna piggyback off of that because I think some of you may know, but I went to school for graphic design, so critique has been a
we
part of my
we
life.
both
Like,
did.
yeah, we both did. And critique is just something that we have been part of my
we
life
both
to
did.
since the beginning. I took art classes starting as far back as I can remember, and I've always had some kind of critique part of my life. And I have to admit that the first time that you take part in a critique, it's scary. Like, it's not fun to hang up your work in front of all your peers, especially when you're like, wow, I suck and everyone's better than me. But, like, honestly, at the end of the day, it's doing it more and just kind of like getting accustomed to what a critique is and kind of like what, like how people speak in it and kind of like how to take people's feedback to make your work better is the only way you're going to get better at it is to do it more, right? It's kind of like how you have to practice an instrument. The more you practice an instrument, the better you'll be. So it's kind of like critique. The more you participate in it and experience it, you'll become more accustomed to it and it'll become less scary. I promise. And I can tell you that there are times where I have been in critiques where you almost want to cry because you just feel so crappy. And that's okay.
I can second that.
Totally normal. Yeah. Um, and just kind of reiterate what Andrew was saying earlier, it's like, we're not here to like, rip you apart and say you suck or you're great or whatever. This critique is really, or not just this critique, but any critique that you get in life when you're partaking in like a creative field is to help you get better. And the only way that you'll get better at a creative thing that you're doing, whether it be photography or like sewing or drawing or playing an instrument, I mean, anything that involves something that where you have to improve on a skill, you're not going to get better if you don't receive critique from peers. It's the only way you can improve. And there's also no such thing as being the best. Like, if you reach that point where like you think you're done learning, that's never a thing. You're always learning. Like, I'm learning something new every single day, whether it be from like my fellow photographer friends or like my cosplayer friends are telling me how to like get better at like sewing because I suck. It just that's the whole learning experience, and you can't do it without taking part in these types of things. So just remember, this is just to help everyone improve at their craft.
Yeah.
Sorry, that
Um,
was really long-winded.
it's fine. I mean, I think mine was fairly long-winded as well. Um, but on that note, uh, because of kind of the situation behind critiquing, and we wanted to kind of highlight how this is done. And like the last time, some people thought we were being like overly critical or what have you, and maybe falsely given the impression like we are these great photographers that are here to judge your work, and that it no. Um, so to kind of attempt to dispel that and show that like our own work needs critique. We wanted to start off this critique by doing two of our own pieces. And we'll start off with one of mine. Let me switch over to that. Okay. Let me know when you have that one up, Sarah.
I got it.
Cool. So since I figure we should try and you can say the first words on this versus me, because no one else is that's gonna have their photo up here is going to have the first words, so it might as well be you. You know?
Oh, I thought we were critiquing her, like we were talking about our own photos. I didn't realize
No, we get no like treating it's fine. We get critiquing this like any other photo we would in this set. So
Okay. Sorry. Wow.
You're fine.
I just
You're
totally
fine.
misunderstood.
No, I should have explained it better to you.
Yeah. Okay, that caught me off guard.
Good. Throw you a curveball.
Yeah. I think my initial thought is I think even though I think the subject is very like it's really obvious where I'm supposed to focus, I think she's almost competing with like the focus of the leaves. Because I think the leaves are so busy. Also, I'm like a sucker for bokeh, so I mean, this just might be a biased opinion. But I feel like the sharpness of the model and the sharpness of like the leaves from the tree are a little competing to me a little bit. That's my first thing. I think the lighting is really beautiful. I think the way the light is hitting her face is really, really nice. And I really like her pose. I think it suits the Skull Kid like super well because he's kind of like weird and quirky and kind of disjointed in a way. And I think she really has nailed like his persona down. Because this is like a Gajinga version, right?
It's Lana from Hyrule
Oh, it's
Warriors.
Lana! Oh shit! Well, she looks like Skull Kid.
Well, she's got that. This is like her Skull Kid's skin.
A Skull Kid skin.
Yeah,
got
yeah.
it. Okay. Yeah, the blue hair was kind of throwing me off. Okay,
No, for sure.
Got it. Regardless, her pose is nice. The other thing that I'm noticing is her foot is being caught off by the tree. I don't know if this is because like it was hard to balance her body on like the main limb in the photo, or I don't know. But I think it's kind of odd that her foot is getting a little cut off because it kind of shortens her body. I think it would have been nice to see the rest of her leg to create like to elongate it a bit more. Her body, I mean. Yeah, that's it.
So, just to kind of put this out there, yeah, I'm shocked when I came up with this idea for this spot and this tree that goes over the water, and I was just like, when I proposed it, I'm just like, you don't have to do this. I think it would be cool, but totally understand if you don't want to go on a tree that's over water while wearing high heels.
Yep.
And she's like, real. Oh yeah, totally, I'll do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, some of the posing here was just kind of by nature of like, it was what it was. Like there, we wouldn't have been able to see her foot no matter what. Also, coincidentally, the lighting in this original shot is hot garbage.
Really?
Yeah, there's lots of editing in this. But like even looking at it now, like I kind of wish I'd spent more time in post on this image. There's a little bit in the water, there's kind of something that's her right kneecap, like, is right by the bit that's in the water, and it's just a really unattractive piece in that water there. And like, I find that now that I'm looking at this shot again, my eye is drawn to that, and I'm like, to Photoshop that out. I also don't know how I feel about the kind of that bottom branch that's coming off.
Like, would you take it out?
So when I was originally editing this, I was unsure whether I should take it out or not, because I kind of wanted to. One, it was going to be a pain in the butt to Photoshop out and get that reflection still looking nice and believable.
100%.
But my other worry was taking it out would really separate the image in half. Like, there would be a top half of this image and then a bottom half of this image. It would be divided by that branch. And the way the branch that comes down there, even though I don't think it's, especially with kind of the right angle it hits there, it's not the most attractive branch. It kind of brought more balance to the image. That's why I kept it in, though I still am conflicted about it.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me, actually. I like that it kind of like helps lead your eye throughout like the entire photo. Like, I'm not super distracted by it at all. I'm actually more distracted by that little piece of whatever that is in the background.
Yeah, the first one I called out. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if the leaves bother me quite as much as they bother you. Would I like them to have been more bokeh out? Yes, always. Because I love my bokeh as well. But I don't know if that bothers me particularly as much. But
that was a nitpicky thing.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like, it does compete. Like, usually what I end up doing to kind of figure out like where my focal point is sitting, and as if you see those watching the stream that see me, I'm squinting at the photo because I kind of like to like get it so that everything looks blurry to me, and then I kind of examine where my eyes fall in the image. And my eye tends, like, it gets drawn kind of around her body in general, so like I don't feel like it's overly competing, especially with the leaves are fairly dark, and like her face is pretty bright compared to it.
Yeah.
I also, like, I mean, I did a lot of lighting work in this image, a lot of dodging and burning it to make this look good. But, like, I don't know, I still feel like it's a bit intense, and I kind of wish I had done it a little bit more naturally. Like, I feel like the lighting looks, to me, a little artificial. I don't necessarily have an answer to how I would have done it better, because then maybe I would have done it better. But yeah, and maybe
the blue greens that are throwing you off.
No, I think maybe the answer there is that if I don't do that, she doesn't pop as much, and the photo kind of loses its focal point because of that. So it's just kind of that balance of, figuring out how far you can push it. Because, like, I still think it's fine, but, like, I am really on the line of it's starting to feel unnatural, so. Any other thoughts on this one, or should we switch over to yours?
We can switch to mine.
Cool. Let's see here. Okay. So, let me bring that one up in Photoshop, because that's where I'm looking at these. So I know the expectation is for me to be laying into you on the Dutch angle, but
Yeah, I just want to say I chose this photo because it has a Dutch angle, which is something that we touched upon last time. So I just wanted to like show that like everyone ends up doing it.
Yeah, to some extent. And I don't think Dutch angles by themselves are inherently bad. Um, I think it's not. I'm not feeling pained by this Dutch angle like I do in other images. Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll look at a shot and like I'll see that Dutch angle, and uh, and then other times it works with the image. And like this one, I kind of feel like it's sitting in the middle there, where it's not hurting the image by any means.
Hmm.
But I don't think it is overly adding to it. I think the real benefit you get from it is it takes out a lot of the negative space that you'd have if you had shot in this not with the Dutch angle.
It's
Um,
funny, actually, on the left, there were a ton of people,
mhm.
and I took them out, and I think that didn't help the Dutch angle component. So I think
Hmm.
that's why I've been feeling particularly self-conscious about the Dutch angle aspect, because well, now y'all know, it wasn't really there to begin with, but it was
Hmm.
kind of like a battle of like, do I want all these random humans in the background, or do I want like this weird, unnatural like horizon line in the background? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's also helpful that we get very little of the actual horizon line in this image.
Mm.
Um, because like I mean, on the left side, the horizon line is very kind of faded with how it's catching the flare. And then the only other bit is we see kind of coming out of that claw is just that little bit, and that ends up not feeling all that problematic because you're really not seeing much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my other thoughts on this image, for whatever reason, I don't know whether this was billowing naturally or if it was, some attempt at like Stella's really good at like flipping her own dresses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that the left side of the image where the dress is kind of flowing upwards,
Mm-hmm.
the the kink in it like halfway through, and then with how straight it goes from that kinked point, just
Yeah.
makes it feel a little weird to me.
I can't remember if it was a flip or if it was a like if someone did it or if it was kind of like a because it was very windy because we were on the water.
Yeah.
I honestly can't remember how he
Hmm.
did it, but it is very kinky.
Whoa.
I agree with
Uh,
you.
and like I think maybe just even spending like a teeny bit of time with liquefy on that might end up helping feel a little bit better. I
Yep.
also maybe think it's because it comes to this very sharp like right angle point at the
It's like a
end.
90-degree angle.
Yeah. And I think that's why like my attention gets drawn to it. Also the fact that it's a darker point sitting amidst what is the brightest area of the image,
Mm.
I think has kind of extra attention brought to it.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Uh,
Yeah, this photo was definitely like a post nightmare for me. So I tell myself to never shoot in like broad daylight. That's like my least favorite time to shoot because one, I don't use lights. Two, I usually never have a reflector and I'm bumming off of someone else. Um, and I just haven't quite figured out how to like work with it in post yet.
mm,
Um, so this I should show it before. The before is quite there's a
oh.
lot of post
Oh,
on this photo to make it work.
certainly. I would love to have shown the before of mine as well. But
Oh,
like, but
it's
honestly, I think
so
that's the difficulty of some of these critiques is like none of the other people that we're going to be critiquing get the luxury of showing their before to show where it
right.
came from, and none of the people that are viewing your work are going to be seeing those before. It's really, we got to judge it based on what it ended up to be.
Yeah.
Um, because that's and ultimately what really matters. Um, The only other thing that I'm feeling is um uh the like her right arm ends up feeling fairly dark compared to like her face.
Oh, I see.
It's not like anything super substantial.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, no, I can see that.
yeah. And I mean, we're going to get really really deep on this.
Do it. I don't care.
I feel like the retouch that you did on her face could have been like a little bit cleaner. Like
Yeah.
there's some like hairs I would maybe clean up in between that bang that's coming off and the ones that are covering her ears, and then there's like there's a couple little spots on her cheek that maybe I would clean up. It's not like really, especially from the viewing distance that you're going to be seeing this. It's it's fairly inconsequential, but I think because I spend so much time retouching that like my eyes are keying in on that.
Right. No, that's fair.
Yeah, so those were both of our images, and I really hope that kind of gave some perspective as to, you know, when we're talking about your images, that like we're not coming from this like holier than thou area.
Yeah, we're just as critical on each other.
Yeah.
We're friends. Like,
yeah, like both of our work, we are trying to improve it. I'm not happy with where my work is right now. I don't know if I ever will be though. So it's just that striving for that area, and we hope that this format and doing this will help push everyone to be able to get better. So without further ado, let's actually get into everyone else's content, because that's what the point of this is.
Let's do it.
We're gonna Sarah, just to be easy, outside of ours, we're just gonna do it in like the alphabetical order. So it starts with Afton's. Okay, let's close that. Go. Let me know when you have it up.
Oh, this is all one cosplay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did that. I did that too when I first.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm always very impressed by composites because I don't have the patience, nor am I good at it. So yeah.
I really like composites, but I just don't have the time to spend on one image anymore to really, I feel like, justify doing a composite. Maybe if I'll feel really compelled, sometimes I'll do a composite, but like
I'm just terrible at it. I've admitted defeat. It's just not my thing.
Before I even started doing photography or like cosplay photography, I was into doing like random composites artistically. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like a throwback to something I used to do, but like that was, you know, spending like 6-7 hours on an image, and like I just can't do that to myself anymore. So cool. So I'll go right ahead and start talking on this one. I think because this is a composite, composites inherently are about like 100 times more difficult than just like editing a photo regularly.
1000% true.
Because trying to get everything to line up so it looks naturally is so freaking difficult. Because like our eyes are so acutely aware of what things should look like that when it doesn't fully line up, it can be kind of jarring. And I'm gonna kind of get into some areas where I think this photo works and where it doesn't in that. Um, but I'll talk before I get into that nitpicky bullshit. I kind of just want to talk compositionally overall for this image, um, which I really do like the overall composition. I find that my eye really ends up flowing through it. I actually start on the guy on the right of the image,
Me
which
too.
I follow his gun into the center guy, which I follow his gun, which brings me to the left guy, whose vision is pointed right back to the guy on the right, and it kind of performs this beautiful like cycle that really I think is compositionally really interesting, and kind of keeps my eye flowing through the piece. The only downside to that is I feel the bottom ends up is being a little empty, because my eye is probably flowing through like mostly the top half of the image and not the bottom half of the image. But overall, I still really do enjoy the composition on it.
Yeah, as I say, I think it's really smart because usually you don't want like the models like what are words? You don't want them to be looking off of your like what your composition is because then it leads the viewer to like leave the image but they don't really want to come back. But because you have the one on the rock to lead you back into the photo, I thought that was really smart. And I
Mm-hmm.
like that a lot.
Yeah. No, the placement there, like, is just
So
awesome.
clever. Yeah, it's
Um,
so good.
yeah, and I think honestly, the composition is the tightest part of this the composite. Um, I think if you did a crop of this where you just like maybe even like cut off like a little bit from the bottom, maybe right about where the belts are on the two right people, like around that area, cut off a little bit of the bottom. It would make the bottom feel, I think, a little less empty and put the head of the middle trooper a bit towards the center of the frame. And I think that would end up balancing out the image even better.
Yeah, I wonder if
Um,
a 16:9 would be nice to
that's
add that
that's
cinematic feel.
literally what I did was I in Photoshop did a 16:9 crop, and I think 16:9 is a bit much for this image.
Mhm.
Like maybe like a 16:10 would feel a little bit better because I think the 16:9 crops it a little bit much.
A little too much.
Um, uh, but now I think at this point is where I'd want to get talking about the composite and where this is successful and where it isn't. Oh gosh, compositing is fucking difficult. So please take everything that I'm saying with a heavy grain of salt and
I
don't.
was about to say, I don't do a lot of compositing,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Um. And once again, like part of this is because we've got sent like the high resolution files of these, so like I can see fairly well what's going on in these images. But the cutout on these is leaving a bit to be desired. If I can go this. So as you can see, like I'm full screening the image here, and zooming in. Like just some of the edges are just kind of rough. Like I can see like either whether you use pen tool or like polygon lasso tool, I can see like on this helmet here like definitive cut lines. And that's never really what you want to see. Also, when you zoom in, you kind of are seeing some like real like shadow compression, which honestly doesn't bother me super much when you like zoomed out, but like when you're kind of looking more in the details, gets a little rougher. Um, Selections are freaking hard though, so I don't fault you too much. Uh, then I think the harder area is like matching this trooper, his feet with the rock that he's standing on. Shadow doesn't quite feel like it's lining up because like our light source is coming from the left of this image, but then you look at the shadows coming off of his feet and they look like they're conflicting with where the light source is. Like they should be falling to the right, but instead they're falling to the left, and that kind of ends up being a little jarring for me. Oops. Also on top of that, I just want to go over the overall lighting on this. So there's several spots on this image where you've got like specular highlights, like they'd be like on the helmet of the trooper here. You can tell that they're specular highlights that have been compressed, which isn't bad in itself. But then you look at like the blaster and the embers, which those hit very bright points, and to kind of make them look natural, you want the white point clipping in your image to be the same for everything. And then when it on the helmet, the white point's compressed, but then this blaster highlight is so bright compared to where we know, like my eyes know it should be a specular highlight, it ends up feeling off. I don't. Sarah, do you want to talk? I feel like I've been rambling for a while, so.
No, that's fine. I think for me, I think this could benefit from some like depth of field, I think. I feel like everything in the photo is in focus, but I'm thinking maybe the background being a little out of focus could really add something to this. I don't, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, from like I'm gonna go from a more like editing, like not editing. I mean, this is editing, but from like a more like maybe color grading or like aesthetic point of view, because I really don't do a lot of compositing, so I don't really like. I don't really know. I don't want to give critique that's like just me saying things that make no sense. But composite wise, I think some depth of field would be nice in this photo. So background maybe blurred a little bit or just something to add depth to the photo. Because right now everything feels kind of like flat, but it's not flat. I don't really know how to describe it. Like actually my initial thought when I first saw it is that it almost feels kind of like a collage, but like in a cool way. I don't know. I really don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say other than it feels like a collage sort of because everything is like the same amount of focus.
Yeah.
That makes any sense? Probably not anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to talk about the color grading in the photo, which I really, really like. It
I would
has this
second that.
like this like vintage kind of feel to it. I just really
reds
like
and blues.
Yeah, the blues and like the yellows and the reds, they just I don't know. It has like this kind of rusty feeling to it. I don't know. I just think it looks very cinematic, which is appropriate I think for this type of image. So I really love what you did in terms of trying to figure out what the color values should be for like your reds, your blues, your whites even. So I think you did a really nice job there.
I think the last thing I want to mention in this shot is the blaster, like the actual rays from them. I want them to be way more flared than they are. Like they feel so. They feel, for lack of a better term, really fake to me right now. I really, I think, take the blur on them and add like multiple layers of highlights and kind of really have it shine so much more, because they are going to be this incredibly bright thing that would flare in an image. And I think that transition that you have, like, I kind of feel like how this was done was like a white paintbrush and then like outer glow with a red tone to applied to the outer glow in Photoshop, which I don't think is necessarily a great way of doing it. I would try like doing multiple layers of color and white, and setting all those layers to like overlay or soft light, and really playing around with those, and like trying to get like a really nice and natural amount of flare.
And setting those layers to soft light will help cast kind of like the red hue that the laser blast would realistically cast on. Obviously, this is not real life, but like in a movie or something, just to help make that ray feel more realistic.
I think what leaving a last note on this image, to me, I would say composites are fucking hard, and this is a solid job, and I think probably the most important part, which is the composition, was nailed. So, and the color grading, so like you're pretty damn close. So yeah. Any other final thoughts from you, Sarah?
No, I think it's pretty solid.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This is Allison's. Let me know when you have it up on your screen.
Got it.
Also say that you should have first go on this one.
Oh, okay, cool. Let me see. First of all, I really like the location that you were able to shoot in. Like, where the hell was this? So like, dope. This is in your backyard.
5 minutes from my apartment.
Yeah, no, I think the location is really, really nice. I think, I'm trying to think. Is that a gun in her hand?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the first thing that drew my attention is I wasn't really sure what the cosplayer was holding. I mean, I kind of assumed it was a gun, and it was very clear it's supposed to be like Lara Croft. But I think maybe like kind of like just turning her hand out a little more, just so we can see more of it, because right now it kind of just looks like, I don't know, kind of like a blob sort of. So I think just like repositioning her body a little bit just to see more of that would have been nice. Oh dear. But overall, I really like the composition. I'm a sucker for those kind of like that golden ratio type thing. And I like the color grading that you did to it. The kind of like sun glare that's coming from, I don't know what kind of day it was, but it almost kind of looks like you shot like a golden hour. And I kind of like the glowy hue you have going on here. Yeah. I think it's nice.
I can answer that. I wouldn't say it was golden hour time. We didn't have a lot of golden hour light. I was also shooting Pyrofly at the same time as Allison was for this, so yes. So we're joint shooting this. I
think though, like, I like the colors a lot in this photo, but I think to bring this to like kind of like the next level, I think some dodging and burning would really benefit. I'm kind of having the same, like when I was talking about your image, where I kind of feel like there isn't like a whole lot of separation between like the model and the background.
My first thought when looking at this is that the cosplayer and the background are kind of the same color tones, especially in like the shirt and the pants, that they end up like really blending in with each other. And what I would like to see is some dodging and burning, and kind of like taking her model up in brightness
Yeah,
and maybe the background a little touch
burning a bit.
darker. That way she can pop just a little bit more. I wouldn't want it taken really that far because then it's gonna start to look unnatural.
Yeah, no, I don't mean a
Um,
lot. Just like
yeah,
just a little bit, I think would help a
yeah.
lot.
Like
Uh,
her skin ends up popping a fair amount against the background.
yeah.
Um, and I think that works well. But the rest of her kind of blends in a bit too much.
Hmm.
Uh, Other thoughts. Um,
The tree.
yep. Scott in the chat made that comment, and I totally agree. Is that her her head is too close to that one tree that's sticking out, and I would agree with that. And honestly, that's a fairly easy Photoshop, I would say.
Hmm.
'Cause you got a lot of like blurred out texture in those leaves that like doing a Photoshop job to get rid of that should not be all that difficult.
Yeah.
And I do think that'll help a fair amount. Um, when I'm looking at this, I I like the toning at the same time I don't.
Hmm.
I feel like the kind of warm colors in it, especially in the highlights, feel like a bit off to me. I don't know how to quite explain it, and I feel bad about that. But maybe it's that her skin is just feels like this. It's stuck in this one, like in this really kind of orange color, and there's like no variation in it from like shadows to highlights. Like it stays in that same color tone the entire way through, instead of like maybe going a little bluer in the shadows and a little like warmer in the highlights. It's really just landing solidly in that same color tone.
I
um,
see.
and I think that's maybe what's feeling a little off to me. um, Also, I think I want the color toning pushed further in this image. I want like
I
those
agree.
the I want the yellows in these image to be more orange. And I think I want the greens to be a bit more blue. Um,
Complementary
yeah, I
colors.
mean that color scheme, that orange and blue, um, is like probably one of the most used color schemes in like films ever. Just because like it's such a enjoyable complementary color scheme, and then it
Yeah,
looks natural because oranges and the highlights doesn't make skin look fucked up. um
quickly.
so yeah, that's kind of the way that I would take it, and right now it just kind of looks just a bit, I don't mean it quite in this way, but it looks just slightly sickly.
Because of the yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um Also compositionally, I think I wish she was a little higher in the frame. Like
Yeah.
the space above her head, I wish she was like, and you could probably get away with just cropping this down a
Cropping
little
it.
bit and it'd be
Hmm.
fine. But giving her a little less um head space above her head, I think works. But
It's nice
yeah, it's
though,
nice. Like,
overall.
I mean, it's hard because like that like looking out of the frame thing can often hurt you in images and feel wrong, but like this one, it really kind of works in kind of um works well with the cosplay. Feels like with her facing away and looking out, it kind of has that like essence of like exploration, and you don't know what's beyond that frame. Um,
Yeah, I'd like
it's
to
kind
call
of
this like one
compelling.
of those like narrative photos
Yes.
where like it kind of like leaves you like it's open for interpretation of what is beyond her line of sight. And I think also I don't know, her hair almost looks like it's like moving kind of like it got caught in the wind or something. So it almost kind of looks semi-actiony too. So I think that helps with kind of like she's like in motion.
Mm.
Because I like it too. I was not bothered by the fact that essentially she's looking off of the frame.
Mm. Okay. I think ready to go on to the next one. Um, that would be Christine Waltman's. Once again, Sarah, just let me know when you got it.
Got it.
Cool.
Do you want to start this one?
Sure.
Cool.
Um, always find laying down poses to be uniquely challenging. Because the everything I feel like you know about lighting kind of changes,
Mhm.
um, and applies in different ways. Um, and this is overall, I think, a fairly well lit image, but like right away, what throws me off is the brightness of her the face with the brightness on her neck pretty much makes the right side of her jawline disappear. Um,
Yeah, it kind of blends in with her neck a little bit, which
yeah,
I
and
know is hard with laying down poses.
yeah, and I was gonna say the reason why I brought up that laying down lighting is because like if she was standing up, the light I think coming from like a high direction, it's gonna fall down and like
Right.
create that shadow under her neck and create that separation. But because she's laying down like this, you don't have that shadow to do that, and now you suddenly have this weird situation, and it kind of makes the choker feel weird to me. Like the right side feels weird to the left side, but it's all because her neck's blending in to her chin or jawline, I should say. Um,
So
gosh.
I really wish the eyes were in
Oh yeah,
focus.
no, I was gonna wait to mention that the shot's
Oh,
out of focus, but absolutely, um, it's out of focus. The focus ended up landing like around her uh collarbone, I'd say. Um,
I think sometimes it's okay if the eyes aren't always, the main focus.
it's
Or
okay if it's intentional, which I don't think it is
right.
here. Like if you have intent with your focus point, that's
Hmm.
fine. This just feels like a case of missed focus.
Well, I was gonna say with laying down poses, I feel like the focus should pretty much always be the eyes.
Yeah.
So I think that was missed here.
Mm.
But I think if they were in focus,
She,
it'd be nice.
and her eyes look like are very very pretty, and I would love to see them looking sharper. I think that would really sell this image a lot more if they were that focus was nailed.
Hmm.
I don't because it's not like a super shallow depth of field in this shot. I don't think it ends up like totally killing the shot. Because like I know if it were me, I'd probably be shooting like at f1.4, and if it focused on her collarbone and not her eyes, you'd be
I mean,
like,
her face just wouldn't be in focus at all. It'd
yeah,
just be a
exactly,
blur.
and you'd be like, well, that shot sucks. I'm throwing that out. But because it's not as shallow, it's not,
It's not. It doesn't hurt as much. Yeah.
yeah. Um, think the one thing that I keep on thinking about is it, and maybe this is just me. I'd like to hear what you think. I kind of feel like this shot feels like it's upside down to me. And I know it's not.
Yeah.
And I've got some thoughts as to why that is.
Hmm.
Like her head's coming towards us, and I don't think if I flip it, it's going to feel right either. But like it doesn't distinctly feel like this was the correct angle for this shot. Like I think maybe if her chin was tipped up a little bit and her head was facing a bit more towards the camera, or coincidentally if you took the camera up a little bit more above her head, just a little bit, it would end up feeling a bit more correct.
Yeah,
But
the angle's almost not extreme enough for me, I think.
yeah, it's sitting at like around a 45 degree angle onto her, and because of that it's just not quite working, I don't think. I'm trying it. Yeah, actually, so do this. I opened it up in Photoshop, and um I'll share my monitor. Uh and I flipped it um 90 degree or 180 degrees, so her head's towards the top of the frame, and I still don't think it's quite right, but I think it feels a little bit more natural than it did before.
Hmm.
um yeah, I think just taking that angle, and either way you take it, making it a bit more extreme, I think works better.
It's definitely something I've noticed when I've tried doing laying down shots. It's if the angle is a little more extreme. Like you may initially think it feels kind of weird, but I think it helps because you almost want it to look intentional, not kind of like, I kind of like tilted my camera. And because I've had a ton of laying down shots I've taken, I'm like, wow, this is crap. I wish I had gone higher or made the angle like more extreme just to get kind of like just to get that laying down like shot to work. Because if not, you should just shoot it from like almost like directly above, or just maybe not lay down at all. But
I've
I know it's a challenge that I've faced many times and have failed
I've
many
taken
times.
some laying down shots that I just threw out because I didn't think they worked, and
Yeah,
this shot is better than some by a fair amount than some that I've ended up throwing out. So like,
ditto.
yeah. Um, Other smaller comments. The like on the very left hand side of the image, kind of by where her shoulder and arm is, there's like a bit of white peeking out, and it almost I don't quite know what it is, but like it just throws me off a little bit. I'd like
Oh, it's
clone.
the ground.
Yeah.
I think she's sitting on like a ledge, sort of,
Mm,
and that's like the edge
yeah.
of the ledge.
And I would just clone that. Like that should be a fairly easy clone. You've got a lot to source from, and then not a lot to fill. So I would just clone that and kind of fill in that. I also think kind of I'd want like a bit more light fall off from the top of her torso to her hands. Like I want her hands to end up being a little darker than they are. Because as they are right now, like her right hand ends up being a fairly bright spot in this image. And like I looking at this image, there's several places where my eye goes. It's her face, the flower, her right hand. And I think you want it on her face, you want it on the flower, you don't want it on that right hand. So like if you kind of like just burned that section of the image a little bit and kind of had the light fall off by her hands a bit more, it would help a little bit.
I want to talk on some like just some small retouching things. This is small, but cleaning up those bobby pins for the ivy leaves, I think would have been good. Only because I know sometimes like when you wear a cosplay, there's just like no other way to attach them to your head. I've had like safety pins pinning things to my wig, bobby pins, but at the end of the day, I would like those shopped out. So I think just next time, just like paying attention to those little things to the costume and just clean that up a little bit would be nice. Again, that's like really minor, but it's from the cosplayer side. I wouldn't want those bobby pins there to show.
Any other thoughts before we move on to the next one?
No.
Okay. Switch on over. Oops, I think I screwed something up here. There we go. Okay. I screwed up the tag there and had a tag showing from last time, so I'll just hide that and pretend that the credits there. Whoopsies!
Oh my God, it's Satellite Productions.
Wow, I screwed up. Let's see if I can quick fix this while you're talking about this one.
Well, this is by Honey Tea Photography. Okay, so right away, I've noticed that
nailed it.
Her face
it's fixed.
like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Killing it, production. Perfect.
Yeah, we're great, you guys. I swear, we're professionals. I really wish her face had been in focus. It's another one of those where the focus was missed a bit on this shot.
I think that bothers me more on this shot than it did in the last shot.
Yeah, because I think because this one it's very clear that the focus should be on the cosplayer's face, whereas the other photo, I think there were other points in the photo where it could have been one or the other. And also before it was just really her eyes that were out of focus, whereas here the entire face is out of focus. So it would have been, I think that was missed here a bit. I do like this almost feels like perfectly symmetrical, which I actually kind of really like with stare photos. So I like that composition component of this. Yeah.
So I would agree with that totally in terms of the symmetry, at least of the shot. The only thing that weirds me out is a very personal thing, is that it reminds me very much of my place at my college campus. So I'm just like, what the? But that's irrelevant to the shot. But really, really weird thing that's getting me. I feel like there's some barrel distortion in this image, and it's noticeable on the stairs from your lens, and like that feels like just a click in Photoshop to fix that distortion. Yeah, because like if you look, the stair is kind of bowing. Mm-hmm. Especially noticeable on the very bottom step.
Very bottom step.
Yeah, and it's a little weird, and it's not like a huge thing, but like for whatever reason, my eye really picked up on it.
It's also an option in Lightroom now. You have like the auto.
Did I say Photoshop and not Lightroom? I meant Lightroom. Like it's literally just a toggle. And
you can even tell it what lens you use, and it'll fix it accordingly. It's great.
Yeah. But I like the pose, or I like the lighting, and I kind of like the pose, and I think it's the start of something promising. I think it's a bit too straight on. I think her leg, it's almost this weird thing, like her leg is leading straight up into her face, and I want like a bit of like an S curve in her body position. Like if her hips kicked out just a little bit, and then there's a little bit of bend in around her waist, and then her leg isn't going straight up, but it's just a little bit off the side, so you're kind of having like a bit of a zigzag with her sitting. Like it doesn't need to be super extreme, but as things are right now, is it's so straight up and down that it just kind of feels really stiff.
I feel like even if just her elbows were bent a little bit too, maybe.
Mm,
So I get that she's supposed to feel like very sassy, but maybe if just like her elbows were bent a little bit, just to create more of like a silhouette. Because right now it is very much kind of like if you were to draw like a box around it, it would literally just be kind of like a rectangle shape.
yeah,
So
I think
yeah,
the
I think
one
just adding more to
that's
it.
weirding me out is her leg is so perfectly pointing to her face, and then her knee almost makes an arrow shape pointing to her face.
Oh my god.
And it weirds me out. I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you just had, if that leg just had like the little bit of moved over, just so that it's not straight up and down, so it's just got a little bit of tilt in it, it fixes that.
Yeah.
Really doesn't need much to change that. I also it. What's interesting about this shot too is that shooting from lower angles can oftentimes be hard to make look good. Uh, when you're like your lens is on kind of like the level of the around like the shin of the cosplayer, and sometimes you just get like a really unflattering look as they're kind of like looking down on you. But because of kind of the position um, of her chin, like doing that kind of sassy with look with the chin up and to the side, it make kind of get rid of that problem and
Yeah.
really works, and kind of it allows you that lower angle to have the railings and the stairs all kind of converge towards her head and really give you a nice focal point.
Hmm.
I think this image straight on instead of from a lower angle is far more boring. So
Yeah, I like the angle choice personally too.
yeah. Um Other thoughts, and continuing kind of on the nitpicky train, is I feel like the color toning is a little bit boring in
Yeah.
this image, and I think it just ends up feeling like it needs a little bit of more color pop to it. Like,
Yeah, I think you could do some fun color grading with this because I think this is from Persona 5. I'm pretty sure. And the colors in that game are pretty the Persona series is very, very colorful and like kind of very like whimsical, fantastical. So I think this would be a fun time to experiment with coloring.
I I think the other thing is like if you look at it, like there's like if you look at the top of the steps, there's orange in that, and then it fades to blue, and I feel like that could be really fun to play with.
Yeah,
Like you've got colors there,
to
and
help
I
you. Yeah.
yeah already in this shot, and I just think that orange ends up being a bit too dull. But I think if you played it up a bit, it could end up being really interesting.
I agree.
Yeah. Kind of final thought. I think really compositionally is the strongest point of this image. It just is really the symmetry makes the image feel really strong,
And her
and
pose commands presence
yeah.
too.
Cool. Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Let me know when you have it up. It's funny, Sarah, because of how your couch cushion is. I feel like your world is slowly tilting sideways.
I'm at a Dutch angle, you guys. Oh, sorry. I have it.
Alright, cool. Um,
I have to say, I really like I like the composition of this photo. Also, because I know this is from RWBY. I know the second, no, oh my god, what season is this? The fourth season? The most recent season, it's like a little more moody. So I was really drawn to the fact that Ruby's character is being portrayed here as a little kind of like more adult and not as cheerful as her like usual self. So this is just me being, because I watch the show. That caught my attention like right away. I just like the overall mood of this photo because it's different from what you would normally see from this series, I think. So I like that a lot. That was my first thought.
I totally agree with the mood. In fact, most of my critique on this is in ways to continue to push that mood towards what I think it should be, which is to say that in the foreground there's these leaves that are catching some strong highlights, and I think they kind of pull the moodiness out of this image a little bit, because they're the brightest spots of this image, and I want them to be darker. Because like they're fighting the focal point between her face and like the bottom and then the upper right. I think if you darken those bits, the focal point clearly becomes her face, and then like it really kind of gives that more dark and atmospheric look to this image. And I think that ends up helping you out a lot.
I kind of want to go into color grading from that point. I think this is getting like really specific, but I think this is me just kind of like eyeballing it, but I think this image could really benefit from toning down the greens almost. And then having the reds pop more, so she kind of pops out more from the photo. But then also like kind of like desaturating the greens would help kind of add that more mature mood that the recent season has developed for the series. I think that could look really nice too.
Yeah. So I've got and I don't know if I've said it before on here, but I've got kind of a strong feeling on greens in general.
Blue greens.
Yeah. So the green that we see like in nature, that kind of like yellowish green to like full on green is everywhere. And because of that, I think my eyes have gotten to the point where I just think that color is incredibly stale. Like, because you go outside, the grass is that color, the leaves are that color, all the plants are that color, and like most of the time if you're shooting cosplay in nature, you're going to get this green somewhere in your image. And I feel like leaving it at that green, pun not intended, feels just a little stale. And like whether you take the saturation down, which I think works quite well,
I think adding some blues would be nice.
Or taking it at bluer works really well for kind of adding some more visual interest to an image. Um, other
I'm actually gonna try it right now, really quick.
oh, Sarah, you and me both already doing that. Um, I was literally doing that while I'm talking because, like, oftentimes, like, I just like to confirm, like, that what I'm talking about actually feels right.
And I
Um,
want to make sure what I'm saying isn't complete tomfoolery.
yeah.
So
Um, so I just did like a incredibly quick, like, 30-second edit on this where I took the saturation of the greens darker, or remove the saturation a little bit, darken that corners, and then actually the other thing that I was gonna say is the red of her, like, cloak is more of a pinkish tone. So I moved that a bit more towards red, and obviously I don't think this is a final edit if you were doing these tweaks, because, like, I did it super sloppily. Um, but I think it ends up feeling like a lot stronger and moodier image really quickly, um, than it is to begin with.
I definitely find myself when I'm shooting things that are red that I always have to adjust them to make them more on the cooler side, because I feel like our cameras tend to capture them on the more like pinky magenta side.
Mm.
I think adding that like the yellow back into the red really helps enhance it.
Yeah,
And I would try that. I would try that desaturated green blue. It looks pretty cool. A nice.
I yeah. Other thoughts. I really like how just one eye is showing and it's looking right at the camera.
Same.
Oh, it's
So
super powerful. Um, and like, another viewpoint of mine, if you're going to have it, almost always, if you have an eye showing in the image, I want that should be the focal point of the image. And here it's just, oh, it's killer. Um,
Yeah, it is.
uh, that said, and her posing, I wish her chin was up just a bit more. Feels just a bit too scrunched up, like, as it is. It'd feel a bit more powerful, I think, if her chin was up a little bit. It's funny because I'm totally, like, when I'm thinking, I'm, like, moving my chin up and down as I'm, like, thinking about the pose, and I probably look like a total doofus. Um, uh, and then compositionally, you've got a lot of headroom in this shot. Um, and because of that, her head is it is in the center of the frame, but I think, like, her body being, filling the bottom half, but then, like, like, or I should say, her head's in the center third, her body's in the lower third, and the top third is just kind of empty, and it makes it feel a little, just like, I get a little lost up there. And I would crop it down just a little bit, get a little bit of room out of the top of the shot. I don't know if you agree with me on that one or not, Sarah.
It doesn't make it or break it for me.
Okay.
Like I don't think like if it cropped in a little like I don't yeah it doesn't totally bother me, but I can see it. Like I would like it either way.
Yeah.
Like it though.
Yeah.
And there's nice movement throughout the photo too with the scythe. How kind of like
Mhm.
you start at the bottom and you go throughout the image, and it kind of just kind of like the Star Wars one. It just kind of loops you back in, which is really nice.
Yeah. I always this is something that's always kind of a touchy subject, and I don't know whether it's worth spending time on or not.
Mm-hmm.
but I often do some cleanup work on people's props if I think
I do the
that
same thing.
that the work on their prop in certain areas is not intended that the way that it's showing. Like there's several like just kind of creases or like paint cracks or things in this image that feel like they're not intended. It was supposed to be a bit cleaner than that, and maybe I'd take like 5 minutes with like the clone stamp tool or the healing brush tool and just clean those up. That shouldn't be too difficult, and just
Don't ever feel like you feel like you're overstepping your boundary by cleaning up a prop or cleaning up a cosplay, getting rid of threads. Like literally, that is a blessing. Please, photographers, please do that. As someone who sometimes just doesn't have time to get their shit together before a shoot, and then I look at a photo after and I'm like, oh no, there's threads everywhere, or like, oh god, there's a dig in my prop because I'm a doofus. Like, it's okay. In my opinion.
yeah.
I do the same thing because I know that like if I saw a photo of myself and there's a freaking like if the paint cracked, I'd be so mad. I'd be like, oh my god, I didn't notice that, or like the photographer didn't notice it, or both parties who just didn't even think about it. Like just getting rid of it with the clone tool in Photoshop is yes, please, please do that.
Cool. Any other final thoughts on this one?
It's dope. Play with the color grading. It'll bring it to the next level.
Cool. Move on to the next one. One's Kai's. So Kai had an image last time we did this, and the comparing this image to the last image he had uploaded.
Which one was the one from last time?
It was the Mercy Bunny Girl.
I was gonna ask if it was the Mercy Bunny. Okay.
And like right off the bat, like this image I think is worlds apart from that last one.
I agree. The only thing that tipped me off that it was the Mercy Bunny was the use of gels.
Yeah, like so I'm a sucker for lighting straight onto the face while someone's looking off like right at the camera. Right at the strobe, or whatever lighting happens to be in this image. I think it's like an umbrella. It kind of, or like a circular softbox or something of that vein, was like with the catch light in her eye. But like the lighting on her eyes is just ace, and I really really like it. A continuing theme. Eyes are like the most important part of an image if they're shown in the image to me. So the reflection and just kind of the overall look of her eyes are just awesome in this shot, and I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy this shot.
Yeah, I love the catch light in her eye.
Mm-hmm.
So strong.
Yeah. Like overall, like the way that the lighting plays in this image is really interesting. Like the gel against those rocks and kind of how they're filling the shadows with that blue gives a really interesting look that makes these rocks, I think, far more that kind of like rocky wall far more interesting than it ever would have been before. The more I look at it, the less it feels interesting. But like, I'm gonna be like, when someone like is looking at your image online, they're probably looking at it for like 5 seconds or less. And I don't know, like it almost gives like a really icy feel, like an icy rock kind of shards when like when I
Mm-hmm.
first look at it before like I really start looking at it. That's what it feels like to me. And it starts falling apart when I look at it more. But like I said, I think most people are not looking at any image more than 5 seconds,
More than 5 seconds. Yep.
and yeah, so I think it still works really well in that respect. Um,
Wondering if it's hard because the model is in focus, but the prop is like so in the foreground. I'm wondering. I think for me, it's. I think they're almost because like they're almost the same size. I kind of wish maybe the prop was lowered like a tiny bit so it wasn't as pronounced in the foreground.
yeah, or I think the prop feels like it's
No.
coming towards the camera. Like if it
Yeah,
was leaning more towards her shoulder, I think it commands less of the frame, and then also is not out of focus, and feels a little bit better. Um, the way that this is framed, I think the entire like right side of the image is really interesting, but then
mm-hmm.
like once you leave the cosplayer and go to the left side of the image, like the left side of the image is super boring. Um, and you've kind of got these vertical lines, and I don't know if they're helping the shot. Like I almost not sure. I almost think you Photoshop out those kind of like the seams of the wall, like the corners of the wall there,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's smoother and kind of if it falls off, I don't think that like white continues to fall off. I don't think I'm bothered by the left side of the image, but because the rock texture ends, and then where you're met with like these vertical lines,
Yeah.
it feels kind of weird to me.
I think for me, it's the vignetting on the left that
Yeah.
bothers me a little bit. I think if that was gotten rid of and these pillar or the not pillars, wow, the rest. Oh my god, if the wall was white, oh my god, um, it would feel less jarring to see like this like stone wall transfer over into like the smooth wall.
Mm.
It's kind of hard to tell. Like I don't really know what would look like what the best solution is, but I think definitely cleaning up the left side wall transition would be good.
Yeah. Um, r- Retouching wise, what I end up feeling like in this image is her face is really shiny, and like on her lips, totally fine for it to be shiny because like that makeup is intended that way, but like on her cheek and like on her chin, like it almost just like that shine feels a bit too strong.
I tone it
Um,
down a tiny bit.
yeah, just do a little bit of retouching, dodge and burning. What I would use frequency separation to kind of clean that up a little bit, and take a little bit of the brightness out of that shine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of like that double-edged sword that like that lighting that's giving you that awesome shine in her eyes and on her lips is like hurting you on her cheeks.
Yeah.
Her only cheek that's visible, I should say. Um, I think on top of that, the one thing I would say with this image is like you could take the color toning a bit further. I kind of feel like the color is brought by the color of the cosplayer in that gel, and
Mm-hmm.
then everything else is kind of pretty close to the color of the actual like environment that this was taken in.
Yeah.
But like playing around with a bit more color toning, bringing like those like the blues up a little bit stronger in the shadows, um, would really make this image more compelling. Or maybe even trying to bring blues into the background of the left side of the image. I don't know if that makes the image a bit too blue. It might.
But it might be a nice, like, because
But
sometimes monochromatic can be a good thing.
yeah. The other thing is, like, on the cosplayer herself, like, the bright blues are kind of more of like a teal color, and then the dark blues are like a more just a regular blue.
Like cobalt blue, yeah.
Yeah, like on the right side, I'd almost try to add like a gradient map, with bringing those highlights to kind of that teal, and then try and play around with that so that you can kind of bring a bit of uniformity to the background with the cosplayer. If that makes sense at all.
Nice. Oh, I'm gonna bring out something really nitpicky.
Good. It's gonna be our MO.
I can see I was wondering what this like speck of green was, and I realized it's the weapon check.
Oh yeah, I saw that earlier too.
Yeah, if I know it'd be a pain in the ass to take out, but I know it would be more than greatly appreciated if that could somehow, even if you desaturated
I was just gonna say, just like the lazy way to do it is just desaturate it.
Just make it gray.
Yeah.
Just take the green out, because oh my god, there's nothing more sad than getting that disgusting zip tie on your prop. It's so sad. So,
yeah, like I think photoshopping it completely out would be a bit of a pain, but yeah, I think if you just take it and desaturate it to like pretty much black and white,
yeah,
it removes all attention, and you almost just feel like it's part of the prop.
Yeah, you'd have no idea that that's what it was. But oh man,
that's what I usually like for like pictures where like the prop is a gun and it's got the orange tip. I'll usually just desaturate the tip of the gun, and that's all I'll do.
It's great. This is great though. This yeah.
It's in my mind, this is a huge step in the right direction from the last image you had submitted. So major props.
Yeah, the lighting's great in this one.
Okay, let's go on to the next shot.
Oh, the stupid zip ties. Bane of my existence.
Okay.
So I didn't say I was really excited when I saw this submitted, because you don't often see portraits in cosplay, which makes me really sad.
Yeah, I for me, I think I really like this shot because of how different the cropping is from things you mostly see.
It's really nice. I'm gonna pick on you about that eye. It's not in focus, or at least
I think is it? No, it's the tip of her nose is in focus.
Yeah.
Where you getting like a little bit of the eyelash in focus, but like then the eye falls off. But so here's my counterpoint in that is.
Oh wait, no.
So
I lied.
It's pretty much there. Like it's not nearly as bad as
I take it back. My thing was just loading slow.
Yeah. So what? And this is why I hate contacts.
Yeah.
I like if I was given a choice, I would so much rather a cosplayer not wear contacts for a photo shoot than wear contacts. Really? Yes, absolutely. Because problem number one, there are multiple reasons for that. Number one, or one of the reasons is highlighted here, is that because this is such a close face shot, you start to see the texture of the contact
Yeah.
and it's got that like weird mesh look to it,
Hmm.
and yeah, it doesn't. It's not the greatest look. Um, and that's nothing against the photographer. Like, I mean, there's things that you can do here, but all of them are a major pain in the ass. I've done them before. I've like completely replaced eyes before so that I could get a more natural looking eye to
I was
replace
gonna
like
say
contact.
I've replaced contacts before when I don't like the texture of the
Yeah.
contact that they've chosen, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this looks weird because I had a photo that I took a couple years ago actually, and it was this. I don't want to say it's the same brand. I'm just gonna assume that it is because it was the same like meshy, like streaky kind of look, like for a blue contact, and I didn't like how it looked, so I just replaced it completely with a different one. It works. It's hacky. It's, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
Uh,
gotta do what you gotta do.
I think the other thing for me is like, let's say she was not wearing that contact. Like, taking her eye to red is
Hmm.
pretty simple in Photoshop.
Yeah.
But fixing the texture of the contact because you don't like the contact, way more
It is
difficult. And once again,
way,
none of these are comments against the photographer in this shot because
or
goddamn
the
that.
cosplayer. It's just the
Yeah,
nature of
yeah.
what it
Like,
is.
I mean, honestly, if you're shooting at a con, like I have no expectation that you wouldn't be wearing contacts. Like, I wouldn't ask you to take out contacts for a shoot. It's more for like location things, because that would be ridiculous. But yeah, it's just something that like my because this shot is so close in on her eye that my eyes really keyed on in on that.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm trying to think like compositionally, I think this image is so close.
Agreed.
I think it needs to be cropped in the tiniest bit.
So it's
Um,
like pretty much like her face is in half.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think because her face feels like you're like truly just it needs to be cropped just ever so slightly in to kind of have it go down the center of her face instead of um just a little bit over, and I think that improves the composition a bit more. It makes it just a little bit more compelling. um that said, that's also fairly nitpicky.
So I think for this, I'm gonna get nitpicky with color grading on this one. I think just the nature of this composition, it reminds me of something that you would see in like an editorial magazine, like an editorial like fashion magazine. And I feel like it would be interesting to see the color grading for this photo be taken to that level. Um, I don't like adding like a different color to the shadows and adding a different color to the highlights. It can be whatever you want. I'm not going to suggest anything in particular. Um, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I do. Like
And you see
it's
high fashion photo shoots, it'll be like yellow in the highlights and then blue in the shadows. That's
yeah,
like a very,
I
very
don't
terrible.
necessarily think it needs to be all that strong, but I think just bringing a bit
Yeah.
more color into the shadows. I don't even think the highlights need it. I think the shadows need it more, kind of like that area like behind her like neck and ear feels like a little bit
I think
too.
blue could be kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, I am such a sucker for taking my shadows cool colored, so like blues,
Same.
purples, that tone. So like, I mean, that's my own bias putting in there, but like I think like just like this a splash of color into those shadows could help a lot.
I'm gonna try it
Um,
right.
uh, um,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah. Uh, Something I'm thinking about when I look at this image, and I go, man, I wish that wasn't like that, but if this was my shot, I wouldn't fix it. Is all the flyaways going on in her bangs?
Hmm.
Oh, buddy, like that's a nightmare to fix all those.
Yeah, that's something you just need to be aware of when you're shooting.
Yeah. Uh, Super hard, and there's not really a good, like, the only way to do it is like just to be super meticulous with like healing brush and clone stamp tool and what
Yeah.
have you. Um, yeah, that would not be fun. I would not want to do that.
Nope. I was like, nothing about this makes me want to do that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you just need to learn to like do it when you're shooting. Just to always be aware of like wigs being shitty. Because it's a pain in the ass to clean up after.
Yeah. Other things that are things that I would fix in this shot, but maybe don't have the expectation that every photographer would spend the time to, is like her eyeliner. The shape kind of falls apart a little bit on the bottom part, as well as like it bulges out like a little bit at the top.
Okay, I was gonna bring up cleaning up makeup, but I was like, is that too intense?
Sarah, both you and I are gonna be like the most nitpicky people ever. It's gonna be amazing. No, it's not. Because these are things that I think both of us do in our photos. Yeah. And I don't know, like there's just some spots, and same with like the tattoo on her face, like just certain areas where I think it could be cleaned up a little bit. And I don't fault a photographer for not doing that, because my god, that's time consuming and shitty.
But it really brings home an image if that is the one of the things that are kind of holding it back.
Yeah.
I was gonna comment on her lipstick. It looks like it kind of wore off by the time that the shoot happened. Like it's a little uneven around the edges. It'd be nice to just kind of like fill it in, kind of like where it would have been naturally, just to define the shape and just clean it up a bit. Fill it in, kind of like where it. Well, I'm glad you brought up the makeup thing, because.
Yeah. Also, nitpicky stuff, because I think this image is really good. That's why I'm getting into this nitpicky stuff.
We're nitpicky because we like it, and we just want it to be even better.
The shadows by her lips like just kind of, I feel like those could be smoothed out a little bit, whether that's a blending within frequency separation or dodging and burning. Just the shadows end up feeling a little awkward, like right above and below her lip, that area. I think that could help strengthen this image a little bit more. I also think like accenting the highlight of her eyes a little bit more. Like there's not a very strong or defined catch light in her eyes, but like her eye, but like there's stuff there that I can see, and I would just brighten up that area a little bit just to kind of bring a little bit more punch to the eye, because like in this kind of shot with her eye looking straight at the camera lens, like that is absolutely the strongest part of the shot, and I think strengthening that a little bit would help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. I really like this.
I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
I have one more cleanup thing. The costume itself on the top on her hat, it looks like, I don't know if this is like there was something on there before and maybe it had fallen off, but there's definitely some kind of like residue, and it'd be nice to clean that up a little bit. You see?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know what that is. It's weird. Like, it could be intentional, but like, I don't know. It looks a little weird.
To me, it doesn't feel. It looks.
No, it doesn't look right.
Only because this has happened to me on a costume before, but you glue it on, it freaking falls off, and then you have like the little glue residue where it darkens the fabric, but then it also doesn't quite fall off with the thing that fell off. And trust me, been there before. Yeah, I think just cleaning that up so it doesn't look like there had been something there. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. It looks like to me there was something that was supposed to be there. It fell off. It's not there anymore. So just to clean up the little glue stuffs would be good.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah. I think this image's real strength is just in that very interesting composition that like I really haven't seen much of. At least I feel like I've seen this composition a lot in like anime itself, like promotional stuff for anime, but I don't think I've seen it a lot in cosplay photography. So I think it's really cool. So,
it's bold. I mean, you're right in the person's face.
Yeah.
I know when people ask me for portrait shots, I'm like, oh god, they're zooming in on my face. But it always lends out to be really pretty, I think. So do it more. Do more portraits. Love portraits.
Cool. Oh, shit. There's one more thing that I thought of.
No.
Damn it. I shouldn't, but I'm going to. So, I feel like there's it's bokeh out, but there's a little bit of her actual hair that comes through underneath her wig by her ear.
Yeah.
And I think just trying to make that match a little bit more would help. But note that I noticed that right now, and we've been looking at this image for a while, so like whatever, maybe ignore that. Alright. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Mallow's.
Oh boy. Okay.
Mallow is always killing it on the toning.
Honestly, teach me things. Teach me things.
So, it's funny. Like, I think this is a good example. Like, I feel like we've mentioned toning and color toning a bunch during this session so far, and I feel like this is kind of what we're getting at a little bit with the colors. Like the shadows are this kind of real dark teal, and the highlights are this kind of red-ish tone to them, reddish yellow.
There's never a true, like, I feel like a lot well, I say majority all the time in Mallow's photos is that there's never really a true white or a true black.
Mm-hmm.
She always like manages to the hell are worse tonight, Jesus Christ. Put some kind of color into her lights, so like the whites, and then some color into her darks or the shadows. Which just, I don't know, just brings your images to a new level, you guys.
So, when I'm looking at this, there's one thing that jumps out to me, and if you've kind of been hearing what I've been talking about the entire time during this session so far, you might have a guess, and it's eyes. Kind of feel like it's hard because I don't know the character. I don't know the context of the character. Maybe it makes sense for the character, but without knowing the character, the dark wells that are the eyes in this for this shot just feel a little bit off-putting. Like her entire section of her eyes are in shadow, and like deep shadow.
So I was gonna say, I don't think it bothers me as much because this is actually a fan art of Haikyuu volleyball anime, and I think they're supposed to be like these like Japanese demon versions of the characters
Hmm.
because you can see she has like that, or they have this like that Obi mask. Um, so I feel like the way that the fan artist like interpreted the character is supposed to be a little more demonic, which so the casted eyes don't bother me as much, but I still think it would have been nice to see some of the eye more because right now I don't really see any of it. So if there was just like a slight catch, even, I think would have been nice.
Um, Scott mentioned this in chat and something I will agree on. Um, it is. I was gonna save it for a bit later, but I'll bring it up since he mentioned
Oh
it.
yeah,
Is the wrinkliness of the like? I guess I'm gonna go ahead and say pants, even though I don't think that's what they are. They're fairly wrinkly, and I would like to see that cleaned up. Like one strong crease down, and then the center, and then there's a
yeah.
bunch of areas where it's just kind of wrinkly, and like for me, that's like a case of like open up frequency separation, really smooth that out, and that shouldn't take too long to do. But
Can I just talk about how the lighting in this photo is literally to die for? At least for me, it is.
I really like it. Um, but man, like I was gonna say, what it comes down to for me is like the incredibly dark shadows in the eye region really turns me off of the lighting.
Hmm.
So like I like it overall a lot. Um,
I agree,
but
though. I think if there was just the slightest little catch in the
I think
eye.
it's because the shadows end up feeling so crushed that
Hmm.
um like it just feels like there's nothing there. Um
Yeah.
uh like pop open a threshold layer, and I like to look, and yeah, it's most of it's like there really isn't a lot of detail in those shadows. But uh I think where I would like to talk a bit more in this image is the composition overall. Um, it feels a little weird to me. Um, and I'll elaborate on that. It feels like the character wants to be on that like lower left third, that third line, but also is kind of like center framed.
Or do you mean right?
Yeah, right. Herp derp.
I agree. Yeah, I think
Um,
it needs. I wish there was more to the left. Like if they were
yeah,
moved down a little
yeah.
bit.
If they the composition had a little bit more on the just shifted, so there was more negative space on the left of the cosplayer, and like less open space on the right, I think it helps a lot. Because I think with the direction the cosplayer is looking, I wouldn't want this center framed.
I
Um,
would there.
yeah, and like I tried playing around with cropping it, and I think it helps a little bit, but I do just think I want to see it like with that image reframed and not cropped, because I
Hmm.
think part of the reason why this image works so well is because of how much of the nature and surrounding space you see.
Yeah.
Um, last but not least, um, maybe least actually, is that stump. I really don't like it there.
The one that they're standing on?
No, because like I think they're standing on ground, but
Oh.
the stump that's to the left of the frame,
Uh-huh.
I want like it to me, it's a sign of humanity because like that cut on it is clearly shown like that it's not a fallen log that had been like chainsawed at one point or another. Um, and it's like just this like like foot and a half long piece of wood that was cut, and it's not big and it's in the frame, and I just would want like just roll that out of the frame.
I'm just like imagining Bella rolling that log. Oh god, and she would do it too.
Yeah. Um yeah, I think that's the only thing. I think it's because it is this highlight spot in the lower left of the frame where I don't want it. Like I don't want my eye to be drawn to that lower left pretty much at all. And I think it could be cloned out, but I also think that would be a major pain in the ass to do it
I'd
well.
rather would just
Yeah, like
yeah.
if in retrospect you could go and move it, it would be a large amount of help. But I mean, much there's not much you can do about it right now. Um, yeah, I think what it comes down to is just like the feel of this photo ends up being so good though, just because of the color toning and kind of those crushed the lifted blacks.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what we talked about this I think last time in Mallow's work. What always impresses me so much is that she manages to do these really strong and kind of interesting color grades without it feeling unnatural.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out how to do that because I don't freaking know how.
Well, guess who's coming on next time? It should be Mallow.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Cool.
That's Samuel's. Okay.
Can I just say how I really like how this is not a pretty shot? Like the
Yeah.
cosplayer is making a very like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You don't see this
Yeah.
cosplayer. Like, it's this like kind of gritty, like real, like I'm ready to like literally slice your head off thing. I don't know. I just think like the mood and the emotion that's being portrayed by the cosplayer is like captured and portrayed like so well. I really like it.
Yeah. Um it's super intense.
It's very
And
intense.
it's nice cuz like I mean it's I think both Sarah, both your and my work tends to focus on making, I'd say, pretty photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really nice to see something different in cosplay photography that's not, focused on the necessarily pretty, but, kind of still an awesome image, just not a pretty image.
Yeah.
Um, categorize this as a badass image. Um, I always find that lightsabers can often be detrimental to photos.
Mm-hmm.
And they are what they are. Like, there's, obviously not much you can change about this because the lightsaber, what you did here, looks perfect, like awesome. Like
Yeah.
it looks realistic. It looks really good. Um, I like how it's playing off of kind of the particles that you edited in. But because of that, compositionally, you've got this bright white line that's cutting through the photo. That's just kind of steals the entire attention of the photo, and really because of how it's framed, almost splits the photo into like two sections, the like top half and bottom half. Um, I don't know what you do about that per se, other than maybe like the contrast is brighter. The contrast is greater in the top half than the bottom half because you kind of got this like particle image that you have overlaid that's lifting the blacks in the bottom, which is fine. I just think because of that, I would like to have a little less space on the bottom. And contextually, like, I think lots of the details are lost in the bottom. Like,
Yeah, someone mentioned that his arm seems a bit unusual.
yeah, it took me a little bit of looking to kind of figure out what was going on with his pose.
I think it's because the arm is being. Wait, is he... Wait.
Yeah.
Is his arm in the foreground?
Yeah, so his arm is
being brought up, right?
He's kind of going like this. If you can look at the stream's probably delayed, so you're not going to see it. But it's this weird like pose where his one arm's going back and the other's forward, and you've got his back.
Oh my god, I totally didn't see the other arm on the back until just now.
Yeah, and it kind of gets lost there, and I think it's because for whatever reason, like the really wide like sleeve just ends up taking so much of that frame towards the bottom that you kind of lose context of the arm.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't know what you do about that. Maybe pose wise, you have like his left shoulder is forward and then his right shoulder is back. Maybe you kind of make that so his left shoulder is back and his right shoulder is forward. So it's kind of like his shoulders are going more with where the direction his head is going.
Yeah.
And that kind of gives you a bit, like, just a little bit more text with his arms that might make it a little bit more natural looking. I think the other thing is I don't know about the lens flare.
Yeah, I was gonna say the lens flare is a little distracting for me actually.
Yeah.
Even though we have this lightsaber going across the screen, the lens flare was actually one of the first things I noticed when I looked at the image. It's so different looking compared to everything else in the photo. No, it's not. I don't think it's the right one.
I also think it's because it doesn't look real.
No. It's very well because everything is so crisp. Like it almost has like that like HDR effect, you know what I mean? But then the lens flare effect is it's poor quality compared to everything else that it does look. I mean, everything is photoshopped in cosplay photography, but this looks like it was photoshopped.
I kind of wonder if the lens flare was put there to kind of hide some of the stuff in the background. To be totally honest, but I think this shot was because it was heavily strobed. It's was not necessarily done in the perfect location. I opened this up and applied solar curves to it to try and get a better idea what was going on in the background, and it looks like just
There's
like,
stuff.
yeah, like it looks like there's like a doorway there.
Ew.
Um,
I think if they took it away, I honestly don't even feel like
I,
I'd
yeah,
notice.
I think maybe then you just take that background just a little bit darker so it loses even more detail there.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, you don't really want the detail there.
Is the door that line that we see, that vertical line?
Yeah, like you can.
Yes, I feel like in that case it's so faint. You could just eye drop tool the darkest part and just kind of paint over it a little bit.
Yeah. Um, I think the other thing I would like to have seen was a bit more glow from the lightsaber, like on his
Hmm.
face.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Because, like, I think the glow of the lightsaber itself was done really well, but, like, it doesn't feel like it's imparting, like, all that much light onto the cosplayer. Um, for the most part, I think the lighting of the shot and how strong it is works well with the lightsaber and doesn't feel like it's conflicting, but it just doesn't feel like it's transferring, like, color.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd like to see some of, like, that red tint, like, glowing off of, like, reflected off of his skin. Other than that, like, God, it's one of those things where it's just like this guy's facial expression steals the show here.
It does.
Like, man, it's so great to see that because I feel like a lot of times end up with a lot of shots with kind of like dead faces, and this is
His is so
this
dynamic.
is a guy who is super into playing his character right now, and it's
Yeah.
awesome. I don't think I have anything else to say on this one.
I don't either. It's dope as shit.
Okay, so we've got one more. Um, is let me know when you have it up, Sarah.
Got it.
And these are a very familiar structure in the background here.
I was like, this ain't Colossal Con. I don't know what is.
Yeah, this is when you look at this shot and you go. Once you've been to enough cons, you start even being able to pick out like more obscure backgrounds, and this one is very, very specific. I'm pretty
The
sure.
waterfall thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's like Sarah,
Near the
you and I shot there this past year, so like,
yeah. And like
like
famous
right there.
waterfall.
Yeah.
It's the gazebo of Colossal Con.
Pretty much. Um. So, looking at this and this photo, and understanding where it is and like the background, I think the lighting, given usually the lighting in this area sucks. Like it's really nice on her, really soft. Kind of makes me wonder if you're using like a diffuser of some sort, but I can't really tell. I don't think so though. Maybe I really don't know. But the background I feel just kind of doesn't hold up for this image.
Mhm.
I think if you, it's hard to understand with what the lighting was doing right this second, and if turning it will screw up everything. But I feel like if you rotate your camera to the left so that you get more of the rock sculpture thingamajig in the frame and get the like Kalahari hotel out of the frame, then suddenly this is gonna feel a lot stronger.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too.
Cause like man, no one wants, like, especially this kind of, I don't know what this is from, but it's a very kind of
It's very ornate
yeah,
costume.
ornate and magical feeling, and then you've got like a hotel in the background, and it's just like, oh, okay. And
We know there's room. There's enough rock.
yeah, and that's a fight that you constantly have at conventions where you're just like, man, the lighting is best here, but then I have hotel in the background. But then when I don't have hotel in the background, the lighting's crap. Like it's a fight that we've had. So like it's something I understand, but like at the same time, almost almost even if you just like photoshopped it out and like taken that sky completely white, or what maybe could have been more interesting is since it's like almost completely blown out, you place just dead on place a new sky in there. This image could
Oh,
end
that
up
would be nice.
looking really nice.
Yeah.
Um, Next thought I have here, and I absolutely know why you did it, is her head is pretty much dead center in the frame, and it makes like that kind of framing is usually what I associate with very new photographers
hmm
because they think like, oh, heads, you know, like the focal point of an image, so I'm going to put it in the very dead center of the shot, and it usually ends up feeling really boring.
Yeah.
I know why you did it because you were giving the a lot of breathing room for the headpiece. Because that headpiece goes so high above her head. Um, but if you wanted to get all of that in, I think your best choice there is to not center frame, but instead, like either zoom out or take a couple steps backward, so that you can have her head a bit more like on a third, and then still get all of the headpiece in there, and just not have her head center framed.
I feel like the center. I think because the background has. I think because the background isn't super ideal, the center framing isn't working. But I feel like if it was against a more, like even if the background was just like the rock part, like we were saying, like it was like a seamless background, the center thing could be kind of cool because her headdress is so symmetrical. I think it could be an interesting composition if the background was different. But that's just me. I just think right now with where it's being shot, it's not quite working for me. So I'm not against it, but I'm also for it.
So I I would also I would echo that, but I still think you need to pull the camera back just a little bit
No, yeah, it
because
needs to be a little
I
more.
think you need to get a little bit more of her body in the frame as well.
I agree.
Um, because that's why you'd have her head towards the top, more towards the top of the frame, is so that you could have more of her
Yeah.
body in the shot. And I think the frame in the center, or her head in the center of the frame, would be less painful if you had more body. But the largest strength of this image, though, is really how soft that lighting is. Though it's really nice looking.
It is really nice. It's very dreamy.
Yeah, it works really well with the cosplay as well. You know, like um, it kind of lets all the colors really pop,
Mm-hmm.
and there are so many different colors that are coming off of her cosplay, which is really awesome. And like, I think what's cool to me is like none of the detail feels lost on her cosplay. Um,
No.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
really
if
want to know what this is from.
Yeah, I know, right? Like this is the kind of cosplay where like I see this come up in the critique and having known where this shot was taken and going to Colossal Con, I'm just like, man, I
How
wish
did
I
I
could.
miss this?
I'm just like, I wish I could have gotten a shot of this cosplay because it's dope looking.
I wonder if it's Sakizo.
That's
That's what it
pro
kind of looks like.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too shocking.
Yeah, if something has like a stupid amount of detail and a ton of gems and stuff all over, I'm like, it's gotta be Sakizo. But I don't know. Could be wrong.
um, yeah, I think that's all I have to say on this guy. Is there any wrap ups on this one?
No, I mean, other than what we've already said, I think it's good.
Cool. Um, yeah, I think that just about wraps up our critique stream. Um, once again, thanks everyone for joining. I
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that we can do these, and uh, we couldn't do these without people submitting photos. So big thanks. I hope you all enjoy watching these. Um, and I hope that after today, that our nitpicks feel less like nitpicks and more just trying to help people improve. Because like I think the biggest thing is like I'm not trying to. Sarah and I are not trying to come off like assholes that are like, no, this isn't good. Yeah, truly, I'd love to hear feedback from everyone. If they find this useful, and like if you do end up going back and re-editing these shots at all, please tag us in them because we'd love to see.
I liked seeing that last time. You guys like improving on your shots. That was like my favorite part.
Yeah. It also lets us know that we haven't just been like shouting into the void for like 2 hours or however long.
Talking nonsense. And maybe we are.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, and with that, I think we're gonna call it a night. Thanks everyone again, and keep the feedback rolling in, and have an awesome evening.
Yeah, message us with feedback. We want to know what you guys think for real. Seriously, we read it.
Yeah,
so.
Critique our critiques, please.
Critique our critique. Yo, that's meta. Do it.
Night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
And